I'm sure it would have been much more, well, I certainly, just because of, I mean, not that we had a lot of money, don't get me wrong. My first husband, John, was not highly paid. He wasn't in a highly paid position, but we still had money to go on vacations. And certainly since Don and I have been married, we've taken a lot of vacations and done a lot of traveling. Now, we tend to be kind of boring when it comes to our traveling. We tend to find places we like and keep going back. But I don't think I would have had the opportunities to travel nearly as much if I had stayed in England. Certainly, the housing wouldn't have been anything like the housing over here. It would have been much more expensive, and relatively you get a lot less house, so that probably would have been a big impact on where we would have been able to afford to live and what kind of a life we would have had. Of course, I would have worked probably in retail for, I mean, that was my career field, so I probably would have stayed in retail. But I think it would have been a much closed-in kind of thing. Not, I wouldn't have had the opportunities, I don't think, that I've had over here. I would have been much more of, I mean, even though this is not a large town, we have the ability to get to cities so much more easily and more often if we want to, that I think I would have done if I'd lived in. I think I'd have been like in small town England as opposed to small town America. I think I would have had a much more insular life. Well, I mean, I think one of the things that I love about England and I do miss is the countryside. That is was always a big part of our lives. And going back, my parents lived in the southwest in a very rural type of, I mean, they lived in a small town, but around it was, they lived on the ocean. And lots of country walks and the ability to enjoy that outside aspect, as opposed to, I mean, I love to walk. I must have got that from my father, and I walk almost every day. I mean, for exercise, but obviously I'm going around the developments around here. I'm not, there's no scenery as such to see. Right. So the countryside, certainly, that is something that I miss, but I don't miss what Americans think of as the quaintness of England, because that was all the stuff that was totally inconvenient and not progressive, like the size of the houses and the lack of, I mean, in older homes. I mean, even though my mother and father built their own home in the probably in the mid-50s, it still only had, well, they were actually progressive, looked at as progressive, because they had central heating in that house, and they had 1.5 bathrooms as opposed to just 1 bathroom. But now newer houses tend to have more of those conveniences, but even newer houses today still tend to be small. I mean, you can buy a 3-bedroom house or you can buy a 4-bedroom house. It's probably exactly the same size. They just made the bedrooms smaller, you know, to get you 4 bedrooms. So, and I do think the other thing that is so much superior here, even though a lot of Americans may not feel the same way, is service. I mean, service in England, for the most part, is just abysmal. And I mean service from restaurant service to even you know, somebody coming into your house to mend something, you know, to fix something. First of all, you probably have to wait at least a week before you get anybody to come and do anything. And I think the British way of the attitude is sort of this, again, goes back to this sort of the way the differences in the thinking is so why don't you just put up with it, because that's the way it is, that's the way it's always been. So it's don't rock the boat. And when I go home, or when I used to go home, and I used to say something to my mother, and I'd say, well, why don't you complain? And she'd look at me like, what do you mean complain? What's the point? You know, and that was sort of the general thing. So service is definitely much more important and recognizing in this country. Well, having gone through the genealogy thing with my father and seen, you know, what he came up with to cover his life and my mother's life and obviously their parents and generations behind, I just thought it was an interesting concept, and it's almost more interesting than just the pure facts, because you're getting obviously more than just the facts. So that was intriguing to me too, and also obviously that this is something that, as long as it's something that seems neat, would be great to give to the kids, to Don's children. You know, I mean, they and the grandchildren are obviously a very important part of our lives, and you know, because my family's in England, obviously I haven't really had much of a one-on-one ability to really keep up a relationship with them. And even though they're my blood kin, and this may sound a little strange, but it's very difficult when you don't see people on a regular basis, because they don't know our friends. I mean, now obviously when they have come over, we've had our friends and had little parties and get-togethers and so on, but they don't know our day-to-day life, and we don't know their day-to-day life. So even though we're related, when I go home and I see my brothers, and also obviously when my parents were alive, see them, you tend to keep talking about the past, because that's all you have in common any longer. And we email regularly and talk on the telephone on a fairly regular basis. Now, I mean, obviously it's more emails than telephone calls, but I probably talk to my brothers, I would say once a month, and then emails in between. But, you know, when you're not living their life, it's awfully difficult to keep a closeness. You know, and so my family has become Don's family, and obviously Don being a twin, that makes it even closer. I mean, when we first got married, a lot of people asked me if I felt threatened because of Don's relationship with his brother, because his ex-wife was threatened by that relationship and didn't like the fact that almost every night they would phone each other, and the phone calls would be sort of stupid if you listened to them, because it was like, what are you doing? Watching TV. What are you doing? You know, and it was sort of that kind of stuff. But it was just that because they have just been so close, that was a very important, you know, and work together as well, I suppose. But and also Doug is married to a twin, so you know that makes it even more different than most people have in a relationship of family. But we're very proud of Don's son and daughter, and also the son-in-law and daughter-in-law. I mean, Kristen and Steve have two wonderful children out in Harrisburg area, and Bradley and his wife Katie, they have two little ones and live here in Allentown. And Bradley works in the business now and is really taking over the business. And Don's almost at the point of retiring, so you know, they're a very big part of our lives, and we see them a lot. Well, I think I never ever had either one of them ever say to me, "You're not my mother, I'm not doing that." You know, they never even no, and never any indication of that, even by feelings or anything. But I think Don was and is a wonderful father. He was very much hands-on, and I think that he was the biggest leader of the pack, if you want, because he made it happen. I mean, he used to get the relationship that he had with his ex-wife. Don had the children mutually
it wasn't like every this or every that. It was a mutual agreement between the two of them that they would share the parenting. And so he would go and get the children get them from school, and generally they would stay with us for a couple days during the week and at least one day over the weekend on a regular basis. So, I mean, unlike a lot of people who I know, I mean, some of my friends who were going through this with stepchildren found it very difficult, but because we didn't have any other children, we were very lucky in a lot of ways, because we had the joy of having his children, but then we also had a lot of private, personal time, which obviously most parents don't have that. They don't have the time to devote to themselves as well as to their children. So we were very lucky in that. And but Don used to make, I mean, when they were with us, every single morning they were with us, he would get up and make breakfast. And he got that from his father, because when he was going to school, that's what his father did. His mother didn't do that. That was their time with their dad. And he always thought that was very important. So he always did that. And then he would take them, because we lived in an area that wasn't in their school district, he would then take them to school. And so that was, it wasn't that I was excluded, but that was just a very personal time for him to be with his two children when they were growing up. And we both thought that was very important, because, I mean, I remember that Kristen and Steve, when they were younger, they said they felt like pieces of mail because they were being sent here, sent there, into different directions. But I think that Don just had good grounding with them, and they turned out great. I mean, obviously we had ups and downs like anybody does with them, but both of them went to Penn State, and Bradley took longer to graduate than Kristen, but Kristen then turned around to us and said, "Why was I so stupid that I was in such a hurry? I should have been on the 5-year plan as well, not the 4-year plan." But, they both found jobs and were successful in life. I mean, Bradley started off, he did not come, and Don thought it was very important for him to do something else before he came into the real estate company, because at 21, it's a little tough to really get involved in selling real estate. You sort of have to build up your credentials, as it were, both in age and maturity. So he did have some jobs and before he came back into the business, but they did good. They really did well. Yes, Kristen and Steve have a boy and a girl, a 13 and 15-year-old. Megan and Matthew are out in Harrisburg. They're both great kids. They go to private Catholic school, and they're very active in all kinds of sports. So they're, they have a very grounded life, and are very lucky. And Indy and Presley, who are the two children that are here, they're 18 months and almost 4. So I do a lot of babysitting here. I probably have, Presley's now in preschool, but I generally see one or at least one of the grandchildren every week. I have them for a day or more, so keeps me busy. And I do a lot of volunteer work. I always have done. And since retiring, I've been doing a lot more in that way.
So speaking about the volunteer work, I did notice that on the questionnaire. Can you say a little bit more about what that has meant to you?
Okay, well, Don has always been very big on doing volunteer work, and he's done a lot for all kinds of different organizations, both through the business and personally, and so has Doug. So when, shortly after we got married, he was on the board of the, it was called the Girls Club at the time because it was an independent organization, but it has since joined with the Boys and Girls Club, the Boys and Girls Club of America. And he was president of that for quite some time. And I think he was on the board actually for 12 years. And when he came off, he asked me if I would be interested in it, and I got involved in it. And I was also at least 12 years, and I actually taught as well at the Boys and Girls Club after school, doing after school programs, teaching reading and math. And the president of the local Allentown Boys and Girls Club has become a very good friend, and I still see her probably once a month. We get together for dinner, and just the two of us. And when I finished doing that, I decided that, the children really were not where I wanted to continue with doing volunteer work. I found it quite a challenge, the teaching aspect especially. And so I was looking around for something else, and I have been involved with hospice, as has Dawn, and I'm also currently driving cancer patients. It's a program called Road to Recovery, and it's organized by the American Cancer Society. And basically, I'm driving patients to some doctor's appointments, but mostly it's either to radiation or chemotherapy. And it's very well run, very well organized, and I pretty much sign up for whatever I want to do. Which is I really like, because with any kind of volunteer work, it's still a commitment. And most volunteer work, once you say yes, you'll do it, it's every this or every, like every Monday afternoon or every Tuesday. Well, as we've got older and we like to travel and to do other things, it's not always, doesn't fit. And then you feel guilty saying, well, I'm sorry, I can't do it today. But this is something that I can sign up for the rides that absolutely fit into my schedule. So I probably do three rides a week, and generally they take anything from 2 to 4 hours, but we're very close to the hospital here. So if it's going to be a long appointment, then I just give my cell phone and I can come home and then go back and get the people afterwards. But my parents, as I say, were very much involved in supporting, obviously, those less fortunate, and it's just something that I think is important, and it's been important to me, and I thoroughly enjoy it. I've met so many interesting people, and we're involved in our church as well. But this is something that I do. There are two ladies from our church who are, well, one's still at home, but she has ALS, and then there's another lady who, actually, I called our church after my mother passed away in 2002, and I missed not having an older woman role model to talk to, and our church put me in touch with this lady, and I've been seeing her. So that was July of 2002 when I first met her, and she's now in a nursing home, but I've been seeing her, well, once a week regularly ever since. So we go back a long way. And her name is Gladys, and she's a really neat lady, but she has very, very severe, inherited very, very severe diabetes, and that's why she's has to now be taken care of. But she's been a real blessing to me, and she never complains about a thing. So it's a really good look. If you feel down, you go and see Gladys, and you don't feel down any longer. Don's not too much of a sightseer when it comes to traveling. So, because I always tease him when we go to England, and because he said, I don't want to go into any more churches. Please don't make me go into one more church. I'm finished. So we tend to, our traveling, I suppose in the last 10 years particularly, has been, we're not interested in anything to do with cold weather. Unlike a lot of people who love to ski and so on, Don and I want to see beaches and warm weather. So we go to the Caribbean. We take most of our lengthy vacations in the winter, where we go somewhere. So we're not very adventurous, because we're not scuba diving or we'll snorkel, but we're not doing anything terribly athletic. our idea is R&R, and our biggest, we always tease and say our biggest decision every day is where we're going for dinner. You know, I mean, that's, we both love to read. Our very favorite place, I think, is Anguilla, which is an island off St. Martin down in the Caribbean. And we've been going there probably, I want to say close to 10 years at least. And well, actually longer than that. I think we first went in 94 or 95. And we've been going every year probably for the last 6 years. We go to a very small boutique hotel that's right on the beach, and you know, even the ladies that of course it's a small island, so everybody knows everybody, but the ladies that do the clean the rooms even know us now. You know, I mean, it's that kind of a place. So we really enjoy it. And the other place we really enjoy is Hilton Head. We go there in the fall when you know, it's nicer temperature and the children are back to school, so it's not nearly as busy. We do like Europe, but neither one of us, the distance and the flying is something that neither one of us, I don't like to fly. I mean, it's kind of weird. We go all over the place, and I do fly. But I did have a problem years ago when I had a panic attack, and I couldn't, I was supposed to be going to England, and I was, you know, you couldn't have told me that plane wasn't going to crash that night. And so I ended up not going. And I did try to get help. And I, you know, I was given, I forget now what drugs, but anyway, I used drugs for a while, but then I decided, look, you know, this is something that we both want to do, so I just decided that I wasn't going to let it stop me from traveling. But I like to go up once and down once as much as I can, so we tend to go to Newark or Philadelphia so we can go on direct flights as much as possible. We have been to Europe, and we've had wonderful experiences in Europe. We both like cruises, but only small boat cruises. And the cruises that we've done have been either on the Royal Clipper line, which is a sailing boat, or on the Windstar line, which is still sails, but they are not quite as traditional in the sailing as the Clipper cruise line. And in fact, we were going with Doug and Georgie and another couple in September 2001, and Don and I went over for a few extra days ahead of time. We landed in Nice, and then we drove to Ez, which is a old historic village on the Mediterranean. And as we drove into, we checked in and went up to our room, and lo and behold, that was Tuesday of 9/11. So unfortunately, because we were there, the cruise ship would not let us not go on the cruise, but Doug and Georgie and the other couple never made it. So as it turned out, we had a wonderful trip, and we couldn't have come back anyway because of the grounding of all aircraft everywhere and the backup with all the stuff. So we went on the cruise, and of course it turned out to be great because we met a lot of people that probably we wouldn't have met had we been with friends, because we just wouldn't have taken that time. So we met two nice older couples who lived up in Boston who were also in France then. So and they became friends over the course of years too. So I think Don did go back. We went back again too. We did another cruise with another couple there, again on a small sailboat. And Don and Brad, for Don's 60th birthday, our son Bradley is a race car driver fanatic. He doesn't race cars himself. He races motorcycles, although I think even that now he's not doing because he's got the responsibilities of the young family. But he and Don went to the Monaco Grand Prix for his 60th birthday. And so that was a real thrill. I mean, that was something that was very special to both of them and that they really enjoyed. So, well, the Bible, of course, but I don't know. I don't think that we're really deep readers. I mean, it's more current. I mean, I like historical novels, and so I read a lot. I like history, so I read a lot of historical novels. I like novels that are wrapped around the history of various countries, like, I mean, obviously England, but also America and Australia, you know, that kind of thing. That, I mean, to me, the bigger the book, the better. I mean, I like, oh, I should say that Exodus was one of the most, a very memorable book to me, I mean, one of the wonderful things about reading books today is these new readers. I mean, Don has a Kindle and I have a Nook, and those are great for travel because you no longer have to worry about packing lots of books in your luggage. So. But yeah, we're always reading. I mean, we read every evening. I mean, we're not much. Don watches a lot of sports on television, but we're not much for watching nothing on television, all the junk programs. But well, I think to some extent it has. I mean, I used to be. I used to love tennis, for instance. Well, you know, as time went on. And that was something that we played in school, which was kind of unusual, I guess, at that time. But we had grass tennis courts at the school I went to, so I played tennis from a young age. But and I did continue playing over here. But as I got older, more and more women went to golf or dropped out of tennis altogether for one reason or another. I mean, I've been very lucky. I've had good health, but obviously not all people do, and knees and arms and elbows and all the rest of it tend to go as you get older. So I did stop playing tennis, and I did go to golf, and I enjoy golf, but it takes too much time for me. So I was never passionate about golf, although I mean, I still do play, but not on a regular basis. As I say, really, I think walking is the thing that I'm most passionate about. That's something that I do on a regular basis. I find that very relaxing, and that's sort of my way of unwinding. I mean, I know that might sound strange to some people, but I just find that a relaxing thing to do. And one of the things that I've started doing, well, I've probably been doing it now for about 5 years. There's a company called the Teaching Company that produces half-hour lectures on, and they're you can have history, philosophy, geology, all kinds of different things and types of lectures, and they're organized by top or lectures are done by top American professors from universities, and I listen to those when I walk. It's just something that I really enjoy. So, right now I'm doing the French Revolution, so this is a series of 48 lectures on that. Yeah,
that's gonna take a while.
Yeah, well, see, I walk an hour a day, so I got the few days that there are. So. Well, my husband, again, so many health issues are inherited. You know, it's part of the gene pool that you happen to have, and Don has not been so fortunate. His mother had a lot of health issues, and one of the health issues that she dealt with was she had a very hard time talking. Her voice box would constrict, and the more nervous she got, the worse it got. She was terrible on the telephone, but if she got upset about things, it's very difficult to understand what she was saying. And Don and Doug have got the same muscle spasming in their face. It came out just in a different place in them. And so they've had to deal with that, and also with an eye issue. We laugh at Don, well, both of them, but Don especially, because he gets Botox shots up above his eyes so that he can keep his eyes open, because it deadens the muscle, I guess is what it does. So he makes me laugh, because I said, oh, it's great, you've got these problems, but at least you don't have wrinkles, because you've got Botox shots going in there, but they're very painful. But they do work for him, so that he doesn't have the muscular spasming, and he can keep his eyes open. I mean, if he wouldn't have them, in fact, Doug got this before Don did, and at the time that Doug got it, the medical opinion was that you cut the muscle, and that would work. Well, it didn't. When they cut the muscle, he now has to wear glasses that have a crutch on the back, so that it actually goes into his eyelid to keep his eye actually open. And Don did have those for a while. He had the same glasses. He didn't have the surgery, but he had the glasses. And then they came out with this Botox. So, the wonderful thing about medicine today is that it seems like every day something new comes out to help somebody. So that has been an issue with him. And his brother was diagnosed with colon cancer, I want to say in the late 80s or early 90s. I think he was in his early 40s at the time. But anyway, he now has been cancer-free for over 25 years. So, he's lucky from that point of view, although, of course, he does have a colostomy. So he has to deal with that on a daily basis. And Don has been touched with prostate cancer just 2 years ago. So there are ongoing issues that they have to deal with. And, as Don laughs at me and says, well, if you've got your father's genes, you're going to be a lonely old lady. So, but I'm very fortunate. I don't take a pill for anything, and I'm in good health, so I'm very lucky. To me, is a much stronger person in that way. Don, he's just, if they have meetings together, it will be typically Doug that leads the meeting as opposed to Don. Don will sit back and listen, and he'll have his ideas and have his say and all the rest of it, but he'll let Doug lead, kind of thing. So, yeah, personality-wise, they are very different, very different.
Well, the other thing I remember is also you said that Doug is married to
a twin. Yes,
twin.
Yes, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and Jerry, Georgie's sister Jerry, she lives up in Danville, so we see them quite frequently. And I know that Don and Doug are identical twins, but they're not to me. They look completely different as far as I'm concerned. But Jerry and Georgie look identical. They really look identical. And in fact, when people, I know them apart. I know which one is which, but a lot of people don't, and they'll think one is the other. They really are identical. So, but.
I'm wondering if there's anything that we haven't asked you about so far that you feel is important, that you wanted to make sure that was documented.
I need a prompt.
Okay. Anything about the past, or we can well, maybe along these lines. one of the questions that I wanted to ask you was if you've ever thought about how you want to be remembered.
Well, I think I want to be remembered as a good person, a happy person, a person that encouraged others, helped others where I could, and I guess that I did my part to lead a good life and to help others I always remember, actually, it was Georgie's twin sister, Jerry, her mother-in-law passed away. Oh, it was a number of years ago. I don't remember now where it was. But her memorial program that was given out at the funeral service was, what did you do with your dash? You know, you live here to here. And, you know, that was, and I thought that was such a neat perspective about saying, what did you do with your life? I mean, I think we all look or tend to look at people like, I don't know, Warren Buffett and say, you know, or you read somebody's obituary in the paper and it's a mile long and you think, oh my goodness, what am I doing with myself? I mean, what have I done to contribute anything when you look at what the credentials that people have and what they've done and so on. And you sort of think that you're so totally insignificant. But then you realize that, well, you do have the ability to touch other people just in your circle of life. I mean, you can't all be Warren Buffetts or Steve Jobs or whatever, but we can do our best in terms of our relationships with the people that we touch. And I think I would like to think that people will think that I did a good job about that. This is a gift that my husband gave me. We have been to California and we saw this. This is all dots, and it comes from the artist is in near the Coit Tower in San Francisco. And the whole thing is made up of dots. That's what it is. And then there's the reading there.
Would you read the reading?
If I can. Across the... Wait. Oh, yeah, I need my glasses. No, I think I can do it. Across the years, I will walk with you in deep green forests on shores of sand. And when our time on earth is through, in heaven too, you will have my hand. And it's called The Promise.
It's beautiful. Hold it up again for us.
And we have that in the bedroom. Say, we now, our camera tends to get either left behind or left in the room or whatever. And I mean, I used to take lots of pictures, of course, when I went home. But then it's like, I don't need any more pictures of me, or or me standing on a moor somewhere, or so we don't. Well, I hope. I mean, Donna, my plan has always been to be able to travel as much as we possibly can, until we can't. I mean, I think we saw with his parents that they had good intentions, but they never quite did it. And I think that that's our biggest thing, is that we would like to continue to travel as much as we can, because we realize that we probably only have, 10 to 15 years, and then we're probably not going to be able to, or health issues might arise or whatever. So we like to take, I mean, we do the bigger trips in the winter, but now through the summer, like tomorrow we're going to St. Michael's and we're going to go down there for 4 days. We went to the Jersey Shore for 4 or 5 days. I mean, we went with the family as well, but we go ourselves. We're going over to Spring Lake. We'll go for a few days. We'll go into the city, but either to New York or to Philadelphia. I mean, we like to do things. I mean, obviously going to plays or just going in to walk around and go to dinner. But we've just sort of decided that as long as we're able to do it, and obviously can afford to do it, that's what we'd like to do. Don wants to go to Alaska. Now, I'm still having a hard time with the concept of going to Alaska because of the even in July, I don't think it's that hot in Alaska. But I think we have sort of the wish lists of places that we would like to go, and I know that's one of them. I don't see myself ever going back, even if something happened to Don, because our circle of friends is all here now. At one time I used to think, well, geez, maybe I'd go home if anything happened to him, but not any longer. I mean, my life is here really, and you know, it's always going to be here. So we have a lot of good friends, and obviously the family is here, so I don't want to make things any more complicated for them either by going home. So I've given up on that. But now hopefully, you know, our health will stay good, and we'll be able to go to the places we want to go and see the things we hope to see.
So, Diane, the last thing, is there anything you want to say to anyone that you have this opportunity?
Well, I want to say to my whole family what a thrill it has been, and how grateful I am to all of them for all the love that they've shown, and especially to Kristen and Steve, how much they've meant to me. And of course Don, you know, I've had a wonderful, wonderful life with him, and I've been very, very lucky and very happy.